إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير حد محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Well, alhamdulillah, this is a continuation by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala of our Khulafah Rashideen series dealing with the rightly guided successors of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we currently are reaching up to the first Khalifa, or the first ruler or successor after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's none other than Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And like we said, we're only going to be highlighting key points that we can extract to benefit us in our daily lives as well as in the times that we are living in from his life. So this is not a detailed account. We're not going into the life of each of these illustrious successors. So we're not going to be going to their biography so much. We're only going to be highlighting key points as it comes to being a leader, as it comes to what type of qualities you need to have. These things that we can extract by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. There is a verse in the Quran where Allah Jalla wa Ala, He commands the rulers and the leaders, and then there's a verse after that which Allah Jalla wa Ala direct towards the subjects of those rulers and leaders and how to respond. And these verses are found in the 4th chapter of the Quran, which is known as Surah An-Nisa, the woman. Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says in the 58th verse as well as in the 59th, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He begins by A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim by saying, Inna Allaha an tu'addul amanati ila ahliha. So Allah says, Inna Allaha ya'murukum an tu'addul amanati ila ahliha wa idha hakantum bayna an-nasi an tahkumu bil 'adl inna Allaha ni'ma yu'idukum bih inna Allaha kana sami'an basira. In this first verse, Allah Jalla wa Ala, He remind the rulers, those whom Allah Jalla wa Ala has granted the authority of leadership, that Allah have commanded them that they do what? That you should render back the trust of those whom it is due. Alright? And then Allah says, and when you judge between the people, then you judge with what we call adl, justice. And Allah says, rather how excellent is the teaching which Allah gives you. Truly Allah is ever our hearer, our seer. This verse is directed to any person is in any type of field of authority, okay? The highest being the ruler, and then it trickled down. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Kullukum ra'un, all of you are shepherds, and each one of you will be responsible for your flock. So a person who has any type of authority, whether you have authority over your family, if it trickled down, if a man have authority over his family, then he still should pay attention to this verse. The highest being even of the rulers, that they should render back the trust of the people. And this is something important, as we should see in the life of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, these qualities being highlighted within his life, which made him a successful ruler. You understand, to have these qualities, meaning that you must render back the trust of the people. Okay? Anyone that's under your care, your children. For example, they are a trust and a loan from Allah Jalla wa Ala to you. So you should make sure that by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, you render back the trust that is due, even when it comes to your families as well. Then Allah Jalla wa Ala, He mentions something for the subjects. How do you behave towards the rulers? What are you supposed to do? Is it unrestricted obedience towards someone who has authority over you? How do that works? So Allah Jalla wa Ala, He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wa ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasula wa ulil amri minkum. It's important to understand this because Allah Jalla wa Ala, He did not restrict our obedience to anyone in rule, anyone in leadership, unrestrictedly. He placed something before that. He said, "O you who believe, your obedience unrestrictedly is to Allah and to His Messenger. O you who believe, obey Allah, obey His Messenger." So He placed the obedience in its unrestricted form, okay, to be only to Allah and His Messenger. All right, which should tell you and I that the next group, which is not mentioned up here, ulul amri minkum. Allah mentioned wa ulul amri minkum, and those who have been given authority over you from the rulers and also from the ulama. So Allah doesn't mention the word al-tiyya, so it's not unrestricted, and we should get into that in understanding of the statement, the speech that we're going to read from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, how all of this is connected in. All right, so when it comes to any authority, we judge that authority based upon the book and the sunnah, okay? And we give our allegiance based upon their adherence to the book and the sunnah. Do you understand that? That's unrestrictedly. And we are obligated to obey them as long as they enforce the book and the sunnah. Do you understand that? And even so, there are many ahadiths on how we behave towards the rulers and so forth, etc. And if they overwhelm in ahadiths, certain way you're supposed to behave. The Prophet ﷺ said, even obey your ruler if they were what? If they were taking your property from you and striking you in your back. So we know that there are many types of ahadiths that are authenticated in how to deal with the rulers. TYhe. So now that we understand it, okay? I want to mention that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, his full name is Abdullah ibn Abi Quhafa, okay? Abdullah ibn Abi Quhafa. All right, there's a difference of opinion amongst the historians in regards to his name being Abdullah or being Qasim. One tradition mentioned that our mother Aisha, his daughter, radiallahu ta'ala anha, she mentioned that his name was Abdullah, okay, ibn Abi Quhafa. Also, that you know, one of the distinguishing qualities of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, was that he was very familiar with what we call nasab, genealogy. He really was real skilled in that, okay, where you trace back the son of so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, his whole family tree, and even all the way back, okay. He was real good in it. He was skilled in what we call nasab, all right. So we already know that he was born 573, okay, all right, and into his death 634. TYhe. All right. Now his kunya, his takanami is Abu Bakr, obviously. All right, and we're not going into the detailed accounting. He was the first of what we call of the Rashidun Caliphate. Okay. Now, sometimes when we think of rulers, especially in the present day governments that we have right now, we have different types of governments. It's always been different types of governments. But however, in Islam, there is a different way. So sometimes we try to modernize and connect the two, all right? And a lot of us don't know the different types of governments there is, as far as what is a dictatorship, what is a monarchy, these type of things, what is totalitarian, what is anarchy, what is all of these different stuff, democracy, all of these different things. So this is not the same thing here with the caliphate, okay? So he was from the first group of leaders, meaning the Caliphate Rashidun. This was known as from the year 600. Okay, the Caliphate Rashidun, which was known from the year 632 to 661. This is the four Khulafah al-Rashidin. This is from the rule of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Ali ibn Abi Talib. All right, they called that phrase the Caliphate of Rashidun. Okay, and then there were different other caliphates throughout the Muslim Ummah. That took different, which we have the Umayyad that came next, Bani Umayyad, and then you have what we call the Abbasid, which came after them, and then we had the Ottoman Empire, which was the last of the caliphates of the Muslims, okay? So, nonetheless, we're focusing on what? The first caliphate. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, hold on to my sunnah, the sunnah of the Khulafah al-Rashidin, al-Mahdiyin, okay? the rightly guided successors. TYhe. So now that we understand a little bit of that, let's go into Abu Bakr's statement that he had. Now, as a Khalifa, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq succeeded the political and administrative functions previously exercised by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, since the religious function and authority of prophethood ended with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's death according to Islam. All right, so he would give a speech, and it was normally the norm when anyone succeed the rulership or the authority, they would address the people. And when they formally address the people, we know this now, that's what we call an inaugurated speech. You know, when the president gives his talk when he first come into office, you know, he takes his declaration, you know, and everything like that. Similar here, they would give a speech to the people. I want you to pay attention to the words of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, because this is what this talk is going to be based on. Again, we're not going into his life, we're just going on to extract benefits that can be beneficial to ourselves. He says, I have been given authority over you, and I am not the best of you. And if I do well, help me. And if I do wrong, set me right. Sincere regard for the truth is loyalty, and disregard for the truth is treachery. The weak amongst you should be strong with me until I have secured his rights, if God wills. And the strong amongst you should be weak with me until I have wrestled from him his rights and others, if Allah wills. Obey me so long as I obey Allah and his messenger. But if I disobey Allah and his messenger, ye owe me no obedience. Arise for your prayer. Allah have mercy upon you. This is tremendous, and this is what we're going to focus on. TYhe, so that you know, when it comes to leadership, there should not be any asking or seeking for leadership. So unlike what you see right now in today's world, where you have a candidate goes up and say, I'm the best guy, and then he goes on a campaign, and then he gets supporters behind him, and then you got another candidate, yeah, I'm the best guy for the job, such and such, such. This is not something that Islam encourages. Islam does not encourage this. This is based off the hadith that comes in Bukhari wa Muslim, the hadith of Abdul Rahman ibn Samura, where he have said that, he says, قال لي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يا عبد الرحمن بن سمرة لا تسأل الإمارة فإنك إن أعطيتها المسألة وكلت إليها وإن أعطيتها عن غير مسألة, he says أعنت عنها وأنت عليها متفق عليه. So he says, the Prophet ﷺ said to me, Oh Abdul Rahman, do not ask for authority. Don't ask for leadership. Do not ask. Do not ask for leadership. Don't ask it. Don't seek it. Do not seek it from the people, right? And look what the Prophet ﷺ, he gives him right. He says, if it is given to you at your request, meaning that you're seeking for this rulership, you will be held fully responsible for it. Do you understand? If it is given to you without your request, meaning you did not seek it, but it was actually given to you, it's granted to you, you will be helped by Allah in it. This is tremendous hadith. Ibn Hajar, he commented on this hadith, Al-Asqalani, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhi. He says that the meaning of this hadith is that whoever seeks leadership and authority and is given it will forfeit his support from Allah. Okay? So the help that he needs from Allah to do right, to be just, and to render back the trust of the people, as we mentioned in the ayat before, and to make sure he judged between the people with justice, all of that will be forfeited, because now he will have the full weight of that responsibility because he sorted out, right? Also, he says, due to his desire. Another benefit in it is that seeking the mandate to judge is discouraged, including authority, judiciary, enforcement, and so on. So it's not just being a ruler of a whole nation. It's whether you want to be a judge. It's whether anything that will require you to have any type of authority, you should not seek it out. You should not seek it out, all right? So this concept of doing this. Now, if you go back into the life of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, all right? And before he passed away, the Prophet ﷺ was doing certain things. One of the things that the Prophet ﷺ would do is that he made Abu Bakr as-Siddiq the Amir al-Hajj. He made him the leader of the Hajj fairs, the pilgrimage, right? And when it came to time to lead the people in prayer, okay, the Prophet ﷺ, when he became ill, he told Abu Bakr to lead the people in prayer. This is a significant move by the Prophet ﷺ on his behalf, showing his approval and showing his preference to give Abu Bakr the actual role of leadership after him. The Prophet ﷺ doesn't mention to the companions about who should rule after him. There's no reports that the Prophet ﷺ ever consulted with them about who should be the leader after me. And the ulama, they say that there's reasons for this. The Prophet ﷺ did not mention this specifically. But there were actions that the Prophet ﷺ did which lead to the conclusion, which actually the outcome which came that Abu Bakr should lead, inshallah ta'ala, the people. TYhe. So when the Prophet ﷺ actually passed away, and the Ansar, they got together, and they were trying to figure out who should rule after the Prophet ﷺ. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he grabbed Umar ibn al-Khattab, he took him, and he took Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, and they went to this meeting hearing that the Ansar were saying what they were saying about who should rule, who should do this after the Prophet ﷺ. Now, Abu Bakr did not, what he did, he presented to the people, because he was from the Muhajirun, he took the hand of Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he took the hand of Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, and what he did was, he says, choose between these two. So I'm trying to paint a picture for you. He did not appoint himself. He did not appoint himself. He did not seek the mantle of leadership or authority. He actually preferred someone other to himself, which was Umar ibn al-Khattab, and it was also Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah. He placed them in front of them. Okay. One of the stories reported was that the people were not pretty much too pleased with that. Umar ibn al-Khattab grabbed the hand of Abu Bakr and he gave his fealty or his allegiance to him. And pretty much it was a universal acceptance after that. Many people started to remember that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and his position and his role and so forth, so they gave fealty to him. I just wanted to bring that out in light of this hadith, that we see that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not seek the leadership, not like the Shiites. They have in their reports that Abu Bakr stole the Khalifa from Ali and Abi Talib, but that's not the case, all right? The case is really, if you look at the history, is that he did not choose himself, which goes in line with what we're talking about. So this tremendous speech of his, right? I have been given authority over you, and I am not the best of you. What does this do? Lesson one we learned from this speech is that the right of the citizens to scrutinize their leader and to hold him accountable. This is important. The right of the citizens to do what? To scrutinize their leaders. Not like what we see that's done today. Okay, so it's a little bit different. The internet, because democracy is different from the type of caliphate that was being done during it. Even though they try to say it was a form of democracy because we had a majlis shura, which we had a council of people. But before then, that didn't take place until after Umar ibn al-Khattab, because before then it was actually Abu Bakr appointed Umar directly without a council of people. All right, so it wasn't a majlis shura until that time. So even then, they said that was a form of like democracy, if you want to say related to democracy. Anyway, because democracy actually comes back with the Greeks and what it is, and even with the Romans, really, it means a rule of people, okay, where it's not subjected to monarchy. Monarchy normally leads to what we say, someone being selected either through hereditary, someone being selected to family passed down, one successor to another, via through a family lineage. You have that even what you have like the kings, because before the Prophet ﷺ, the Arabs used to rule like with tribes, like tribalism and stuff like that. And then afterwards, later, you see that a lot of the different people, the different ruling worlds, they was using what we call kingdoms, which is a form of monarchy, all right? And even it could be, the difference between dictatorship and monarchy is that one is taken by force, all right? So at any rate, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the right of the citizens to scrutinize their leader and hold him accountable. He placed himself, and this shows that he was so keen and concerned for the welfare of the citizens, of his people, and of which is a redeeming quality, that he placed himself in a vulnerable state. In other words, he was saying, okay, here I am. You can bring me account. You can hold me accountable for any actions that I do. And this is important, especially for any one of us that have any authority, then we should be transparent. We should not allow power or authority or any type of, position to get to our head to make us think that we cannot be approached, that we cannot be advised, that we cannot be encouraged, that we cannot be criticized, that we cannot be censored. These things should stop that. Unlike what we see on Twitter, where people are saying what they want to say about the president, calling the president all types of names. I never was in agreement with that. I mean, Islamically, we're not in agreement. I know it's not an Islamic type of rulership and so forth. But at the very least, you have to think about that. Speaking ill of the person who's supposed to be your leader is like, it's definitely disliking Islam. It's definitely disliking Islam. It's not something that we encourage in Islam. I'll tell you. And the people lose sense in that person. If you speak ill of that person and you say what you want to say about that person, it's not pretty much cool. All right? Nonetheless, when Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, if I do well, help me. And if I do wrong, set me right. He here is affirming that the right of the citizens to hold their leaders accountable for their actions. Also, this make it clear that the era of prophetic infallibility was over. From now on, the leaders are susceptible to make mistakes. Major point. Major point. So you brothers who have wives and families, or have wife or wives, and you are above your wife or your wives, and you have your families, fear Allah. And a part of fearing Allah is holding yourself accountable. Bring yourself to account as a part of fearing Allah. Allowing yourself to be censored. Allowing the fact that if you are wrong, that your wife can point out that you are wrong. A lot of brothers, for some reason, they miss this point. You think that just because you are the man, or if you are the breadwinner, and I want to give a sincere advice, nobody who is in any type of position, as far as financial, or far as any type of provisions, we as Muslims must realize that our provision lies with Allah and not with anyone else. So Allah Jalla wa Ala is the one who is in control of our rizq, and that we cannot think it's due to our own hands and lord it over others that we have something. So that concept, I'm the breadwinner and you do as I say, no. You don't do as I say, you do as Allah say. Allah tied your obedience to me based off my obedience to Him. That's how that works. This goes for the leader of a country, as we see, a leader of an ummah, of a nation. It goes for a judge. It goes for any type of position that Allah Jalla wa Ala is the one who gave me this authority. So in terms, my obedience and adherence to Allah is going to be based off your obedience and adherence to me. Do you understand this? This is very important. And many times when it comes to marriages, we see this oppression because it becomes zulm now. We see this oppression taking place because a lot of times the head of the household does not want to be transparent or be held accountable. And they call this some type of narcissistic behavior where they don't want to be reproached. And they think just because they're doing X, Y, and Z, it gives them the right to do that. This is why the Prophet ﷺ over and over, always emphasized the best of you are those who are the best to their family. It's important why he kept saying this. Because the woman and the children are under your care as a trust. And just because you have that trust doesn't give you the right to abuse it. You understand? It's so easy to abuse or misabuse trust. So here we see Abu Bakr being vulnerable and holding himself accountable and letting the people know, you can set me right. These days, even in the Western nations, the freedom of expression against the ruler is at best tolerated. In the Islamic Caliphate of Abu Bakr, the citizens are expected, not just allowed, to correct their leaders. So in other words, they are expected to correct when something is wrong. I remember one time it was mentioned, and we get into his story, you see that? When Umar ibn al-Khattab, he was giving an address to the people, and he said something in regards to something, and one of the citizens, or one of the subjects, they said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what about such and such, you are incorrect. All right, and this is coming from one of the subjects. She didn't fear to be reprehensible. He didn't order her to be beaten. He didn't order her to do this and that because she said something and addressed him pertaining to the mahar, the dowry, the bridal money that is supposed to be given to the bride. She addressed the ruler on that. Okay, TYhe. So another thing we can see in this speech is the redeeming quality of truthfulness should be the basis of all dealings between anyone in authority and the people. So one of the things that you should have if you are given any authority is that the unabsolute truth. You must be a truthful individual. This is a quality that you must have. And the stronger we perfect that, the better off we will be. A person can love you, a person can get closer to you, a person can actually respect you, a person can actually honor you, a person can actually, it's no length a person will go to, whether they know you or do not know you, if they know of your truthfulness. Do you understand that? If a person know of your truthfulness, that this person is truthful no matter what the situation is, whether it's for me or against me, that's the crux of truthfulness. Do you understand that? Truthfulness, the crux of it, the heart of it, is that you're going to hold yourself accountable, whether it is for you or against you. Do you understand? It's adam, because you're not going to lie against yourself. So you must be truthful. That's the point. Do you understand? The problem that happens is many of us, we lose that somewhere down the line. You know, when we get some type of position, we lose the fact that we need to be truthful, that we don't need to tell lies. We don't need to not be transparent, so to speak. You understand? And the reason why I'm talking about husband and wives, because most of us don't have positions like a leader, all right? But we do have positions where we are over top of our family. Even if you're over top of your children. So that's something that we can relate to. So truthfulness is a real redeeming quality. And it's also one of the qualities of the believers. As Allah Jalla wa'ala tells the believers over and over in the Quran, for them to be what? From the Siddiqun, those to be truthful. And be of those who are what? Truthful. So truthful is a redeeming quality that we should have, inshallah ta'ala. Okay? Sincere regard for truth is loyalty, and disregard for truth is treachery. This is his words. So if you are truthful and you are paying attention, you're being sincere in your truth, then this brings about that loyalty. Your subjects, your family members, your friends, your associates, your employees will all be loyal to you because they know how truthful you are. Do you see? All of that brings together. Okay? All of that brings together. That's why, and I'm gonna say that for later. Let's say that for later. I'm just getting ready to bring something else, but I'm gonna say that for later. All right. So he said, disregard for truth is treachery. So when you don't give truth is right, and you're not a truthful person, then what happens? Brothers and sisters, honestly think about this. What happens? A person becomes treacherous. You say, why did such and such do that to me? You know, I've been treating such and such like this. Why is such and such undermining my authority? Why is such and such betraying my trust? The Salaf, they used to say that when something would happen, they would look inwardly, and they would look at their sins when they would see something happening with their riding beasts, or their wives would have a sharp tongue with them, or their children are being disobedient. Look how they would connect everything back to themselves and hold themselves accountable because of that situation. So if someone is betraying you and being treacherous towards you, do you not sit back and say how truthful you have been towards them? Because your truthfulness would demand loyalty. So if they're being treacherous towards you, it got to be some reason you're doing what? You might not being truthful all the way like you think you are. So you might get treachery. And we're not talking about the people who just treacherous by nature and you didn't do nothing to them. But we're talking about people who you have control over, and at the same time they become treacherous towards you. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq announced that truthfulness should be the basis of all dealings between a leader and his people. This needs to be the case if the people are develop a sense of trust in their leader. A person shouldn't get up there and tell you lies. Now, let's clarify something here. If, for example, saying something that can be harmful or cause a panic, or all of the details have not been fully developed, all of the things have not been understood properly and has not been investigated thoroughly, then it might be from wisdom for the leader to get up and say, I'm going to disclose this to the whole public. That might be the best course of action. Do you understand? The Prophet ﷺ, when he was a leader, as well as Abu Bakr, when there were certain things that were pertaining to the affairs of the Muslims and he had to move in certain ways, then he didn't just let everyone be privy to that counsel. In other words, he didn't say, I'm going to open it up to the whole Muslim ummah. This is not treachery. This is not being untruthful. Okay? Allah tells in the Quran, have they, when it comes to issue of touching public safety or fear, have they delegated and returned it back to its proper people to investigate, meaning to the Messenger ﷺ and those whom are authority over them, so they can investigate it properly, then the matter could have been decided. So it's not for us, like in our times, to try to start being, Sherlock Holmes and things like that, and think that we're supposed to have all of the information and we gotta find them in this. And that's the thing about, that's the problem with a lot with the democracy and the freedom of expression and all this. You might say, well, this is freedom. It's no one in the world right now is not deluded to think that because you think you live in the land, which they call the land of freedom, and you're governed by this and governed by that you're nowhere near free. That's just, come on, be honest. You're nowhere near free. So at the end of the day, stop this illusion of freedom. You know what I mean? The true freedom that was going to be exercised, given to you, that each one of us should know our roles and fulfill those roles that we need to fulfill. And by us doing that, that will brings about that freedom that we're talking about. But this liberty to think that you can do what you want and when you want and how you want it is an illusion. Because you doing that and you're doing this, you still don't govern pretty much what's taking place. And we're seeing that now with the whole world being shut down and your jobs are letting you off and you can't do X, Y, and Z. You're seeing that now, right? This liberty of freedom that you thought you had at once is no longer there, right? So you never was really in control like you thought you were, right? Yeah, so stop the illusion. Islam clarify this one. Okay, so TYhe, he says, another benefit that can be extracted from this talk is establishing the principles of justice. Okay, and the Prophet Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, what did he do? He said, the weak amongst you shall be strong with me. This is major. Until I have secured his rights. Major. Now, major this is. The weak amongst me should be strong. Those are less fortunate. Those are who are the people who don't really consider them. They don't consider their rights. They do them poorly, like slaves. Okay? Like people who are less fortunate on the status pole. Do you understand? They can't do this, they can't do that. People who are over top of them do not treat them correct. So I'm going to make them strong with me. I am going to secure their rights. Not like what we see in the societies that we are in. The people who are destitute, the people who are less fortunate are the ones who get the bad end of the stick. That's with taxes. That's with anything you want to look at. You can see that their rights are not being upheld. Here he made it in his speech that I'm going to make it my concern that the weak that's from amongst you, the less fortunate, will be strong with me. I'm going to secure their rights. What is due to them will be given. This is why we stress the importance of leadership and of rulership. The importance is that that person who's in this responsibility or this role have to understand that the running and the organization and the way that that society move and function is based on this person's administering justice. Do you understand that? You have to administer justice. Give the people their haqq. Okay? Don't take more than what's due. One of the redeeming qualities of Abu Bakr Caliphate, I want you to know something, because during him, he is the one who established what we call Baytul Mal. The Baytul Mal, not Baytul Mal, the Baytul Mal. Baytul Mal is what's known as the treasury, okay? During his caliphate is when this was established. So he established this treasury, but guess what he did? He refunded all of what from the Baytul Mal that was going to be paid to him. He refunded and gave it away, didn't take nothing from it. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did not take nothing from it, which shows you what type of character that this person had. So those weak individuals, they're going to receive justice in my rule. Okay? And the strong amongst you, not because they noble, not because they are wealthy, not because they have status, not because they are from this clan or from that, they're going to be weak with me until I wrestle from him the rights of others. You see that? And this is important. I'm not going to make the big guy the big guy. So like we have one of the problems that we have in democracy is that we see that most people, when they get into office, they support those who are already winning, those who are already up, so people complain about that, especially those who are on the lower pole. They complain, how come they always getting all of the tax write-off, the benefits, etc., 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 right? And even as for any society, they seem to look out for those who are wealthy, they get more, and then they substitute the one who is destitute and poor. No, Abu Bakr said, I'm not doing that. I am going to make sure that the weak get what is due to them, and I'm going to make sure that the strong give what is due to them. And this is one of the highlighting points of the zakat system. The Prophet ﷺ, as Allah ordered him, and he told Mu'adh ibn Jabal to do what? Tell them that if they do this and do that, that we take from their wealth to give to who? You understand? And it wasn't a lot of taxation. It was taxation in the Islamic Caliphate, don't get it wrong. But during the Khulafah al-Rashidin, there was not a lot of taxation. People weren't taxed just for everything. And the tax that was levied towards the rich was not to take the best of their things. That tax literally was levied towards them to keep balance and harmony for those who are less fortunate and to keep things running. You really should do a research on that. Inshallah ta'ala, you're going to find how beautiful this system was helping the economy back then, as well as the circulation and how it was moving. So the justice of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and other Khulafah won the hearts of many people, including the enemies, and made them embrace Islam. This was the effects of his justice. So when you hear of a just ruler, what do? I know I can go here, I can go there. What you going to do? You're going to feel so happy that that person is so truthful and so justice. That person practices justice. It's going to be a love that you're going to have. You're going to love that person. You understand? Even the enemies couldn't fight against that. So we learned that justice, even a person who is upright in justice and truthful, will actually penetrate through the hearts of those who are enemies. And we also understand that this can lead to people accepting Islam, because they're going to want to know, where did you get all these qualities from? Why are you being the way that you are? And you see that Islam, the tenets of Islam and the Sharia is the reason why you're doing it, so you get it. Another thing that we get is sources of legislation and declaration that the leader is not above law. That there is no one above the law, meaning above Allah and His Messenger. Henceforth, look at that ayah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. O you who believe, obey Allah, obey His Messenger. Allah wanted the subjects of the people whom you have to obey to be understood that their obedience was not restricted or unrestricted, that they were not above the law. Do you understand that? That the book, that Allah deserves your undying fealty. That the messenger deserves your undying fealty, and the rulers whom I have placed and given authority over you, they do not deserve your undying fealty. They are to be obeyed based on their adherence to my book and to that of my Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can see the beauty there. And most people, they say that when you look at monarchies, sometimes what happens is they say that they're divine light, or they are getting their rulership from God. But in this case, we know that we had the Quran and we had the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we know that the companions, they were those who actually did it. So TYhe, he said, obey me so long as I obey Allah and His Messenger. This is what Abu Bakr said. Obey me as long as I obey Allah and His Messenger. I ask you a question. If we were to say this to our people that's under our care, if you were to say this to your wife, right, and to your children, obey me as long as I obey Allah and His Messenger, how smooth will the family run? Think about that. How smooth will the family run, right? Imagine being in a marriage like that the husband is going to hold himself accountable to that. Imagine the wife telling the children, obey me as long as I what? Obey Allah and His Messenger. The problem is, I believe, and Allah knows best, is a large number, and I'm included, a large number of Muslim households that's un-Islamic. That their marriage is un-Islamic. And what I mean by that is that their marriage is not governed by the Book of Allah and the Sunnah. In that verse that I'm quoting about obey Allah, obey His Messenger, obey those who are given authority, Allah mentioned a fundamental point that all of us need to understand. Which shows us that you're going to differ. Because that's the way Allah made it. Not all of us are not alike. You're going to differ. You're going to see things that you're not going to agree with. But if you do differ, and if you do dispute, and if you do have an argument, and here Allah used shay'in, the scholars they explained that when that nakira, indefinite article is used, it's for anything, okay, that'll bring about that dispute. Allah says, "Furduhu ilallahi wa rasuli." Now refer back to your opinion. Now refer back to what you think should happen. Okay? Now refer back to how you feel or your emotions. Refer back to Allah and His Messenger. The problem is most marriages don't know what Allah said or His Messenger. So how do that make that an Islamic household? Explain it to me. If you ignorant of the deen, you ignorant of Allah's book, and you ignorant of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, how do that make you an Islamic household? Because you're Muslims? That's make you an Islamic household? No, what makes something an Islamic household? Something that makes something Islamic, the household had to be governed by Islam. That makes it an Islamic household. How many of us, think about it, when school was in play, how many of us, or even school not being in play, how many of us wake our children up to pray? We get ourselves up to pray, but how many of us, if we do that, how many of us, when we get up, wake the children, the whole household to pray? What is governing us? If our children get into a bond or a fight or this and that, how do we decide? What is the ruling situation here? Do we go say, see what your dad got to say? Or see what your mom have to say? This is a major problem to why there's a lot of divorces, whether you believe it or not. Because we're not governing ourselves by anything but how we feel, or by what the society dictates to us, or what we see some celebrities do, or what we think TV or television is telling us or showing us, or what we think this person over here is doing, or something like that. But it's not the book and the sunnah. So you cannot brag and say I have an Islamic household when you're not governed by the book and the sunnah. Do you understand? So Allah says, "Furduhu ilallahi wa rasuli." So refer back that dispute, this problem that you have, with amongst yourselves, whether it was the ruler and the subjects, whether with the husband and the wife, or whether the husband and the family, whether it was the wife or the children, or whether it's with the employees or the employer, okay, or whether it's with this person or that person, any authority that is given, any dispute that takes place, then you need to refer back to Allah and His Messenger. You refer back to Allah by going back to His book. You refer back to His Messenger, sallallahu by going to His Sunnah. And if you're not skilled and you're not knowledgeable in how to understand the book of Allah or the Sunnah, you refer back to those people whom Allah have given the understanding of His book and the Sunnah from a trustworthy scholar. Do you understand? To explain to you what is said. Resources in abundance. How many do that? How many do that? Wallahi, we're being so much good if we just follow these. Look at this speech of it. We just follow this in our everyday lives. Our marriages could be saved. Our marriages really could be saved. If we were truthful, we were honest, and we hold ourselves and govern ourselves for this, this can be done. He says, but if I disobey Allah and His Messenger, you owe me no obedience. Look at this. If I disobey Allah and His Messenger, you owe me no obedience. This is a ruler telling the subjects before he come into rule that this is what you can expect from me, and this is what you're going to hold me up to. This is the expectation that you should have. I am going to be this individual who are going to administer justice. Rulers, understand your position. Your position is to administer justice on earth for Allah's subjects. Do you understand that? You are there to establish justice within that reign. If a person get in office, I don't like to use the word office, it's democracy, your job is to make sure that justice is reigning. What is justice? Justice is making sure everyone get their necessary haqq, their necessary due, their necessary right, what is obligated upon them, making sure others do not trample or oppress or misuse or misabuse those who are less fortunate than them. All of this was said in this statement of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He knew this, he understood this, and this what made his reign, even though it was relatively short, it made it so successful. He conquered a lot of things. He established the reign of the governors over the Arabian Peninsula at that time. Also, he fought against what we call the apostates, the Ridda Wars, those tribes who reneged on giving the zakat because they thought that the Prophet ﷺ was done. They didn't have to give it. He also did a lot of other things where he delegated and deployed certain companions to go fight certain battles against the Roman, against the Byzantine emperor at that time, against the Romans. He delegated delegations to Syria, okay, Khalid ibn Walid, all of these different things that he did. So that lets you know that he was not only a leader, but he was a general as well. And he carried and established a lot of stuff, the Beit al-Mal and all of these different things. This was the role and responsibility of a leader. What is your role and responsibility as a father? What is your role and responsibility as a mother? What's your role and responsibility as an employee? What's your role and responsibility as someone given some type of authority? What is your role? What is your role? Many of us do not hold these qualities, man. We get in there and we just damage the sister. Or the sister get in there and she just damaged the husband. All because we don't want to be governed by the book of Allah and the Sunnah. Or the employer cheats the employee. Or the employee cheats the employer. And if you had these qualities in the beginning, a lot of this stuff could have been avoided. If I went to go work for you and I know that you're an honest employer, I know that you're going to pay me, like the Prophet ﷺ said, before the sweat leaves my brow. I know that you understand that my sweat and my time is my currency, is my viable asset. I know that you're going to pay me for that time. You're going to take that in consideration. I know that you're going to be fair in dealing with me. You're not going to cheat me or underhand me or undermine me. I know this, you're going to get my loyalty. So when the business suffer, so when the corporation suffer, I'm not going to be the first of your employees to say, I can't do this, I need to go look for somewhere else. No, I'm going to help you during that time. Why do you get that loyalty? Because you have been loyal to me. You see that? You have been truthful to me. You have been honest to me. That's the same thing with a husband and wife. That wife is not going to jump up and say, brother, you can't provide for me today. I want to khula, I'm out. She's not going to do that if you was a truthful, honest, respectable husband. One who administered the rights when you had it, and you gave her rights. So when you go through those problems and the hardest times, she's going to be there with you through those problems and the hardest times. She's not going to leave you. Do you understand that? But if you're a person who doesn't give her rights, you trample on it, this is not, she's not worrying about trying to stick around for you. You're not a person that can honestly help her out in that regard. So we have to look at these qualities and stop thinking that they don't mean something. Being an honest person, being a truthful person means a lot in Islam. And it means a lot to you as a person, character building. This is what's going to bring about that loyalty. So he says, this made it clear as he's going to follow only the Quran and the Sunnah, that obeying the leader is contingent upon the leader following the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay? Upon following the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ said that what? There is no obedience to the makhluk, to the creation, when it comes to sinning. Obedience is restricted to al-ma'ruf. This comes in Bukhari. So there's no obedience when it comes to sinning. And that obedience is restricted to what? Ma'ruf, to good. You understand that? All connected to being what? Morality, ethics, being someone that is good. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to allow us to incorporate these qualities here, to extract these benefits that we just taken from the statement of Abu Bakr, the first Khaleefah, and we seen how in his life he embodied all of this. I mean, it's a no-brainer. He embodied all of this. He did not take from the people's wealth. He did not live off the people's wealth. He did not mistrample the rights of the people. He wasn't one worrying about benefiting himself because he was in a position over people. He was an individual who actually humbled himself more because the responsibility was great. This was the type of person he was. We need to embody this in our lives. When you're married to a person, you need to be thinking about how you can give the right to those individuals who have a right over you. And this should keep you up at night. You should ask Allah for His help. You should ask Allah Jalla wa Ala for His help in terms of that. If you're looking to be a leader, you shouldn't be begging to be a leader. But you should fulfill the role of responsibility of being someone who's going to be responsible and holding these redeeming qualities so that Allah can aid you and help you when it happens. You understand? And you need to understand when it comes to children, children have a stage where they are a sponge. When children are sponges, what do? They normally suck up and absorb everything that they see, hear, and what goes around them. So that direct role is a responsibility of those who are parents over them to realize that, because the children is going to mimic, and be influenced by what they see, hear, and observe. And all of that stuff that they absorb is going to be the shaping of their future. Do you understand? And the responsibility, since it's not on them, but relies on the person who's the caretaker of those particular children. So you need to instill these things into the children so they can understand. We are living in a dangerous and perilous time, and I need to understand it just as well as you need to understand this, is that we are living in a time of technology. You might say, brother, why are you talking about technology as a dangerous and perilous time? Why? Because technology, sometimes people get lost in it. It has its benefits and it has its disbenefits. It has advantages and its disadvantages. And that is because everything is recorded, everything is already preserved, the apps, all of the stuff that we're taking, our information is on it, it's everything. Even the bombs, everything that we have is computerized, it's computer chips. And our children are being in this age as millenniums and being brought up in this time are living their lives based on that. And they don't know the day-to-day struggle of life. They don't preserve those things which are natural. They don't understand the feel of reading books, or the feel of agriculture, or the feel of actually doing this with your hands and using this. They figure that life can be so simple, just click it and that's it. And they stuck in that world. And so when things happen and things take place and you got to survive, they're not going to really know too much about survival. So it's our job to really teach them about things that Allah has given us, those essential basics components that we have, and we were privy during that time to realize that and not to get caught up and sucked up in most things. This is what I wanted to bring for the first Khalifa, inshallah ta'ala. Like we said, we did not want to go into his life. Hopefully we all benefit, and inshallah ta'ala we apply it within in our lives. If you want a successful leadership role, don't ask for it. And also be truthful, stick to the book and the sunnah, hold yourself accountable, and make sure you give everybody their right. And if you want a successful marriage, then also be truthful, give everybody their right, and also stick to the book and the sunnah, and govern yourself with the book and the sunnah. Don't let that man come into that marriage and all you're fascinated with is how the man look, how the man dress, how the man speak, and what the man has. But you're not fascinated with the fact of, is the man spiritual? Is he morally sound? Do we stick to the book of Allah? Do we stick to the sunnah? If we stick to the book of Allah and the sunnah, that means he have to have what? Knowledge. So if you're not, that should be the keenest thing on your mind. Is he knowledgeable of the book and the sunnah? And knowledgeable of the book and the sunnah does not mean having information about the book and the sunnah. Okay? Having information is information. Knowledge of the book and the sunnah is his implementation and his understanding of the book and the sunnah. His implementation is only going to be based off of what he understands from the book and the sunnah. So if he's a person who understands correct, and if 80% correct or 90% understanding is strong, then his implementation and carrying it out is how it's going to be. So you're going to want that man when a storm comes through, because he's going to know how to delegate and deal with the affairs. This is something what you're going to look for. Likewise, women, you wives, if this we men, we need to understand that as well. Make sure she's connected to Allah and His Messenger, not connected to the dunya. As Ibn Qayyim mentioned about the dunya world, the dunya bents, and he mentioned about the women who are those of the deen. Okay, the women of the world is only fascinated with the world. They're only attracted to the world. So not really worrying too much about Allah and His Messenger. That's what you want to make a distinguishing factor. We get back to the book of Allah and the Sunnah. Whatever said it was incorrect from ourselves and shaitan, whatever said it was correct from Allah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallahu khairan.